Okay. So welcome, everybody. It is very cool and exciting to be with you all tonight, and I'm really looking forward to this sharing and discussion and questions. So let's begin with dropping into our bodies for a moment. So if you're comfortable to close your eyes, please do. And become aware of your heart center, the space in the middle of your chest. And just imagine that as you're breathing into that space in the middle of your chest. And as you're breathing out from that space in the middle of your chest. And keep your awareness on that space in your chest, your heart center. Slow, deep breaths in and out. And now bring your awareness down to your sexual center, down to your genitals. And as you breathe in, have the awareness that your breath is coming in through your nose, through your heart, and flowing down into your genitals, into your sexual center. And as you breathe out, your breath and your energy flowing up the middle of your body, out through your nose or your mouth. Breathing all the way down into your sexual center and out, connecting your heart, connecting your sex, dropping into your body, into being present. And then take a deep, deep breath in. And slowly, slowly, slowly breathe out and slowly open your eyes. Very good. Okay, so I have muted everybody just so that there's no background noise. And I am very happy for questions during this. So either type them into the chat box or unmute yourselves any way that that you would like, and ask your questions at any time, because I'm happy for this to be as much discussion as me talking. So a long time ago, I want to share a story with you about my first threesome. I was young, I was 22, 23, maybe 24, but not more than that. And this was pre-internet days, so it wasn't so easy to find people. And I found them. So I found a couple who were willing to have a threesome with me. They were very experienced, and I was really nervous. So I don't remember how we got in touch with each other, but we did, and we must have chatted on the phone, and they asked me if I'd like to come and meet them and have a glass of wine. So I went to their home, and I did, and we spent an evening just talking, chatting, getting to know each other, and it was comfortable, it was easy, and I left. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call from I don't remember if it was from him or from her, but I remember the wording exactly. It must actually have been from him, from the husband. And what he said to me was, would you like to come and share our bed? And I was excited and not quite terrified, but really nervous and really anxious. How does this all work, and how does it happen, and what do you do, and what does everybody do in this whole thing? And as much as I really wanted this, I was really nervous and had no clue how this actually worked, how it all happened, how did it flow. And because they were quite experienced, they made it really easy. They made it really, really comfortable. But there were a lot of things in it, in the experience, that were never really explained, that were never kind of spoken about. And for them, it was something that they did quite a lot. So it was really easy for them. And for me, kind of after the sex, I was thinking, well, like, what do I do now? How long do I stay here? When do I leave? All of these things. And it was a really interesting experience. From a sexual point of view, I don't remember it being amazing, because I think I was really nervous. And it was really much more about her than about them. And I do remember at some point he kind of went into one of the other rooms and left me alone with his wife. And that's kind of what it was about to some extent. But it really intrigued me. And over time, I've had quite a lot of experiences with different configurations of people in different ways. And some of you know that at some point I was involved in running a sex club, an adult fantasy club, which was really, really interesting. And I learned an amazing amount. I had a lot of amazing experiences. And over time, this is a discussion that's come up a lot with so many people. And one of the reasons that really prompted me to offer this webinar was it's come up with quite a few people that I am working with at the moment. How to have experiences with more than one person, or how does a couple have an experience with another partner? How does this all work? What happens? What do you do in it? How do you start it? So I thought it would be something really interesting to talk about. And here we are. And some of what we are going to talk about tonight is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and some of it you have to take with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Like a while ago, there were some discussions about orgies. And one of the things that I said was that I thought orgies were very overrated and really hard work. And the first one that I attended was exciting. And after that, it's like having this huge buffet of all of these amazing dishes, but you only get a mouthful of each one before it kind of moves away, before it gets taken away. So it's kind of exciting, but not really fulfilling. That was my take on it. And there's a story that I like to tell about that. So Playboy TV made a series called Swing, and it's a reality show. There's quite a lot of it available on the different porn channels. And it takes place in a mansion somewhere, and there's 5 or 6 resident swinger couples. And then each episode, they bring another couple in to explore their fantasies. And it's really well done, because they talk a lot about communication, about the different experiences and possibilities. And they keep interviewing them. They keep interviewing the participants. And there's one scene where a woman says to her partner, you know, my fantasy for you is to have a woman on each hand, a woman on your cock, and a woman over your face. And he looked at her and he said, oh, that just sounds like so much work. So as much as we have these fantasies, there's a very big difference between the fantasy and the reality. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. So a starting point for this becomes why. why do you want to have an experience with more than one person, or as a couple? Why do you want to have an experience with another person, or with another couple, or with more than one, whatever the configuration might be? And it becomes really important to have this discussion and to have this talk, because there are a lot of people who look at this as a way of saying, well, we're actually really bored with each other, so let's do something that's more exciting. And there's a problem in that, because if you're bored with each other, then looking for something outside is going to bring some excitement. There's no question of that. But very often it can create a whole lot more issues and problems that it might solve. And it's really important to understand that if your relationship is not strong, if communication in your relationship is not clear, as exciting as the thought of an experience with another person or people can be, it can also be quite a recipe for disaster. And that's really, really important to talk about. Why? What is the intention? And if it's about exploring possibilities, if it's about exploring different roles, if it's about having more pleasure, that's very, very different to trying to fix a problem in the relationship. And so often we look for a solution outside. And because it's exciting, we think it's going to be fabulous. And it can be, and it can really be a disaster as well. So it's really important to have that discussion and to get some clarity on why. And then very often when one partner brings this up, very often there's some kind of resistance, there's some kind of fear from your partner. Things like, am I not enough? Am I not attractive enough? Don't I fulfill you? Why do you want someone else? I'm not good enough within myself. And those kind of resistances and the discussions around that open the door to incredible intimacy and understanding. And this is really important, because sometimes the discussions around it are actually more important than having the experience, because the discussion is the learning about each other, learning about, why does this turn you on? Why does this scare you? Why is it something that is exciting for me? And why is it something that is challenging for you? And when we do this, we're starting to communicate, and we're doing this with incredible honesty, because when we have these discussions, and this goes into the bigger picture of exploring all of our sensuality and sexuality. It's sharing our fantasies. It's revealing what's in the shadow of who we are. And when we start to have these discussions with honesty, we really start to connect on a deep level of intimacy with our partner, and understanding that having the discussion is often the most important part of this. And whether you actually do or don't do anything becomes secondary sometimes. It's so much more about the sharing between you, the intimacy between you. And there's something in this that's important, and we're going to come back to it a few times. Because in so many of these experiences, one partner's fantasy or desire becomes so huge that they forget about the safety of their relationship, and how important it is, how vital, essential it is to guard your relationship. That's number one. That is the single most important factor in having an experience with another person, with another couple, with a group, is really guarding that. And of course, there's a corollary to that. The corollary is if your relationship is important. But guarding that with almost jealously guarding that with incredible awareness and incredible alertness is so important, because that's what creates the safety for both of you to explore in whatever way it is that you're going to. And really, I can't emphasize this enough, because I've seen the disaster from it so many times that, you know, somebody has a fantasy, and the fantasy might even be about a specific person, but their desire for the other person is so great that they actually at some point kind of lose the importance of their partner. And that's when it becomes an absolute disaster. So absolutely vital to guard your relationship and to be so aware of your partner in all of these experiences. And when we do that, when we have that safety, that's where we can open the space of possibility. That's where we can start to share what it is that we'd like to experience, what it is that we'd like to explore. And this is where curiosity comes in. And the curiosity is such a vital part of this, to say, well, you know, for most men, the first time that they talk about a threesome, generally it's with two women. And there's a lot of women who make a joke to say, well, how is one man going to really fully satisfy two women if he can't fully satisfy one? And it's a joke, but sometimes it's not, because it's so important in terms of the fulfillment of this. I'm going to answer this question because it's really, really important, that Alice asked. What does guarding your relationship look like? Is that during an experience? It's before an experience, it's during an experience, and it's after an experience. And what guarding it looks like is that your partner and the safety of your partner and the safety of your relationship is the most important thing in this. So that means that in any of these experiences, there are very clear boundaries as to what it is that you're going to do and what it is that you are not going to do. And so often in the moment of absolute passion and absolute energy and absolute pleasure, we can lose ourselves so quickly and so easily. And an hour later, that comes back like a bomb exploding. So the boundaries of these experiences are absolutely vital, whatever they may be. And guarding your relationship means when you have decided on what the boundaries are, you do not go beyond that. It doesn't matter how much desire there is. It doesn't matter how much energy there is. If you say, for example, that you would like to have an experience with another person that is just going to involve kissing. Let's dip a toe in the water. So we're a couple and we find a somebody, could be a man, it could be a woman, that we would like to share an experience with. And for tonight or today, all that we are going to do is kiss. And if that's what we have decided, then that is where we stay. When we do that, we're creating safety. And we're also creating the possibility of going further, of going a little bit deeper. And as Louise and Philip say there, it's a constant and evolving discussion because it keeps changing. But the absolute importance of it is that when we have a boundary, we stay with that boundary. And when we do that, we are creating that safety. And in that safety, we are creating possibility. And I'm going to digress for a minute, because immediately when we hear about an experience with another person, we go to something that's sexual. And a lot of times it's not and doesn't have to be. And the world of touch and massage, for example, offers so many amazing possibilities in an experience of more than one person. And over time, I've done a lot of like forehand massage, where two people are massaging one, done experiences where two people are massaging three, or six people are massaging one, and you have, a whole group of people. We've done this on some workshops, where at the end of the workshop, one person lies in the middle of a group and everybody touches them for a while, and they decide on the boundaries of their experience. So it doesn't always mean that it's about sex. And sometimes it can actually not involve touch at all. Sometimes it can be a conversation with another person. And that's all that it is. A conversation about an experience, or a conversation about a fantasy, or simply sharing a fantasy in a conversation. It doesn't always mean that it's about sex, that it's about orgasm. Because as soon as we go there, we're putting ourselves in a position of pressure, of performance, of a goal, of an outcome. And when we understand that the spectrum of possibility in this is enormous, that it's not always about sex, we're really open to so many exciting experiences that don't always have to be sexual. And when we do that, we kind of actually free ourselves from the expectations that the mind has, because the mind has all these expectations about what it is. And a lot of this comes from, excuse me, from movies, from porn, of how we think it's going to be. And a lot of times how we think it's going to be actually can be very different and quite awkward in the beginning. So the safety is vital. And when we do that, when we understand that stepping into this space is incredibly vulnerable for all of us involved, doesn't matter how many experiences you may have had, that safety makes the vulnerability possible, and that allows for a fulfilling experience. And when you set the boundaries, so if it's a massage experience, for example, and maybe the massage is not going to involve any genital touching. A while ago, I had a discussion with a couple who wanted to share with another couple, and they decided that massage was the way to open the door to the experience. They were friends, they'd known each other for quite a long time. And we spoke about, so what would the boundaries of the massage be? And what they did was they created a time limit for every person to experience the massage, where all three were touching the other person. There was no genital touching. And at the end of that, they stopped and they spoke about the experience, what the giving was, what the receiving was, what the sharing was, how turned on they got, what they felt nervous about. And that's what creates the safety. That's what allows us to drop deeper if we choose. So I hope that answers the question, Alice. And if not, please let me know, and then we will talk more about that. It can be quite common that partners are not in it equally. This is, yeah, absolutely. And this is a really big one. There's a big thing about sort of taking one for the team, because my partner really wants to do this, so I will do it. And it's a really interesting one. And I don't know that there's a blanket answer, but I will say this. At some point, if you are in an experience, whatever that is, that you are not fully present in, and that you are not fully consenting in, and that you have not fully agreed to, and that you really cannot fully commit to, it is going to cause resentment. it is going to cause anger, it is going to cause frustration. And whether you voice that, whether you're aware of it or not, or whether it's just subconscious, it is going to come out in some way, and it's going to come out in some other place in your relationship. And it can really backfire enormously. Having said that, there's something interesting in this. And again, there's not a hard and fast, definite answer for everything. We are not going to fulfill all of our partner's needs. That is an impossibility. You know, we've set up this situation of the way that we look at relationships in a general and very monogamous sense, that we are going to fulfill our partner's every pleasure need, and we simply cannot. I mean, sometimes that's a simple matter of body equipment. That's simple. Because sometimes a man might want to be touched by or touch another man. A woman might want to touch and be touched by another woman. And beyond that, there are certain fantasies, there are certain acts, there are certain things that we are not going to be able to fulfill exclusively within ourselves. So creating a space, creating an experience for your partner's needs to be fulfilled becomes really important. But you have to do that with a commitment to that. So there's a very interesting word called compersion. Compersion is getting pleasure from seeing your partner being pleasured, or the awareness, even if you're not present, that your partner is being pleasured. And we have to drop a fair amount of ego in this. We have to drop a fair amount of ownership. And I was about to say we have to drop a fair amount of jealousy, but here's an interesting thing. And this is my opinion on this. In these experiences, jealousy is going to come up at some stage. It might be about somebody's body. It might be about somebody's technique. It might be, for example, that somebody has a bigger cock than you, that somebody has bigger boobs than you, that somebody has what you think is a better body than yours. And jealousy in so many ways can come up in these experiences. It's not that we overcome jealousy. To some extent, we can certainly look at that. We can certainly work with that, and we can lessen the impact of that. But there are times where jealousy in these experiences is going to be there. It's about owning the feelings that we have. It's about communicating them with your partner, and maybe not in a moment in an experience, but really knowing that that's a part of you. And just because that's there doesn't mean it has to take away from the experience, because it's not all that's there. And that's important. It's not that we don't become, all of a sudden, we're not jealous anymore. That's not really human. It's going to be there to some extent inside of us. And it's how we deal with it. It's how we engage with that, really owning that, really acknowledging that that's a part of us that allows that to be present in an experience, but it's not everything that's in an experience. And it's a part of us, because we might be envious of people for so many reasons. And in a sexual situation, it could just be one of the reasons. So I hope that answers your question. Then what's important in these discussions is to understand that, what we said was most men come along and they say, well, I want to have a threesome with another woman. And there are women who will say, well, that's absolutely fine. I'm very happy to do that. But I want to have a threesome with two men. And for so many men, that's when they go, no. And that opens, firstly, such a beautiful discussion, because what is the resistance? What is the fear around that? And then to understand that it really does need to be fair for everybody. Because that goes back to the kind of taking one for the team. And even though there might be pleasure for me in an experience, when I come and I say, so I'd like to have this experience, and you say no, that's where the anger, that's where the frustration, that's where the resentment will come in. And at some point in this, we actually have to make very clear choices as to what's really important to us. How important is our relationship? How important is our fulfillment? How important is making our partner feel safe and loved, as opposed to this incredible energy and lust of a fantasy that we want to fulfill? Because sometimes the cost of that is enormous. And I've seen this happen. And again, it's so much about the discussion and about the communication. And, you know, I shared something with my lover earlier because we were having a discussion about this webinar tonight. And one of the things that I shared with her was the first time that I had another man's cock in my mouth. And that was in an experience with another couple. And whether you do that or not, what becomes so important is the discussion around it. What is the resistance? So if a man says, no, I'm not interested in having another man, what is the fear in that? And that becomes an amazing opportunity of healing for him to look at what's inside of him. What are his fears, his resistances, his insecurities about that? And that's so much more important than the actual experience that may or may not happen. And that's where the intimacy happens. And that's so important. And you know what Philip and Louise have said there is so important, because they've said we're so much closer. And that's the point of any experience. Is it going to create more intimacy between us? Is it going to be more an expression of our love than anything else? And if I can see you enjoying pleasure in whatever way that is, and I can look at how beautiful you are in that moment and how fulfilled you may be, that can open so many possibilities. And all of this that we're talking about here comes back to the safety, to really guarding your relationship, guarding each other, your bodies, your hearts, and any exploration that you're going to do. That is absolutely vital. And then bringing curiosity, because these experiences allow the curiosity to be explored, to have all of these adventures, all of these discoveries, all of these amazing explorations of bodies, of hearts, of possibilities. And, you know, when I started my journey, I went and did everything that I possibly could. I got a lot of t-shirts. Some of them I would never repeat the experiences, but I learned a lot. And for me, the purpose was, how does this work? How does it feel? How does it happen? Because I knew at some stage I was going to be sharing this with other people. And I wanted to know how it works, how it feels. What are people doing? And what a lot of these experiences allow us to do is they allow us to fulfill this curiosity, to take away the judgment of what we think of as right or wrong, but to say, what can happen in this space? So as a man, what might it be like to kiss and touch another man? And the touch of another man is so different to the touch of a woman. To have a man's arms around you is so different to having the arms of a woman around you. And we find that they're not right, they're not wrong, they're simply different experiences. And they really offer us a range of possibilities of going deeper into ourselves. And this is one of the ideas of conscious sexuality, is that it's so much of an inner journey of exploring, experiencing these aspects of ourselves, of looking at where the resistances are, where the fears are, where the insecurities are. And in an embodied way, to actually be able to have an experience that allows us to go beyond those patterns, those beliefs, those inhibitions. And we free ourselves from so many of our fears in that. And this is such a powerful aspect of sexuality and of these experiences. Multiple partner experiences can make or break the relationships, absolutely. And it's just so much about learning about each other and learning about ourselves. And if we can do that and we can bring more of ourselves into the relationship, then the relationship is expanding. You know, the defining element of a conscious relationship is growth, that we are in the relationship to grow. For my growth, for your growth, and for our growth. And when we have that as the guiding force of a relationship, so much can change with that idea, because it's an idea of consciousness. It's not just about love. And it's not just about a relationship in the way that most of the world looks at relationship. And I'm going to digress there for a second, because we actually have a very narrow model of relationship. And a while ago, I read about a study done by some anthropologists. There are over 200 models of relationship in the world. And for most of us, kind of in the Western world, we look at quite a narrow spectrum of relationship possibilities. And for most people, even though it's actually changing quite fast, monogamy is sort of the model. And when we look at that, and when we say that this is about growth, and we look at the idea that I can go and have a psilocybin mushroom experience, and I can go and do a fire walk, and I can go and do a yoga retreat, and I can go on a tantra retreat. And all of those are about growth, about expansion, about exploring, and we go and do all sorts of things. And yet we've put sex in this box that's very, very narrow, that's often very constricted, that we take out in very specific circumstances and contexts, and we use it and then we put it away again. But when we bring the idea of growth and we bring the idea of consciousness and expansion into our sexual experiences, so much can change in that, because we're taking the judgment of something being right or wrong. And sex is the part of life that we judge the most. We're just simply taking that away and saying, let's bring the idea of consciousness into this. So for example, the field of traditional Tantra has a lot of really interesting and sometimes very challenging ideas on how to live in all aspects of life. So if we go and we learn in that field, why can't we do the same thing sexually and sensually? If we practice yoga and learn about that, we bring that into our lives. Why can't we do the same thing sexually? We look at changing eating because something's healthier, something gives us more awareness of what we're eating. Why can't we bring the same thing into our sexuality with the same consciousness? That's what's really important. So we're not having these experiences simply out of sexual desire, sexual lust. And I'm not judging that at all. I'm simply saying there's more than that involved in this. And when we can come to the experiences with that awareness, with the exploration, the expression of all these different aspects of ourselves, so much can change. We free ourselves so much in that. And that's really important. And really important after whatever the experience is, to talk about it, to share. What did it bring up within you? What did you feel? Everything in that, whether you felt insecure in a moment, whether you felt absolutely amazing and full of love in a moment, to be able to own the emotions that we feel, to own everything that comes up for us, to be able to share it, to be able to talk about it, to acknowledge it. And this is an enormous part, firstly, of the safety of the experience, and an enormous part of the growth of the experience. And when we're sharing that, we're creating, again, really deeper intimacy with our partner. So that's quite a lot of stuff, and that's quite an overview of some of these experiences. So this is a fabulous time for comments and questions, even though some people have been asking that. So you're more than welcome. Either type them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask the questions. And even maybe just comment on what you think about everything that we have been talking about. Did anything touch you particularly? Did anything resonate? Did anything jar something inside? Did anything knock something loose?
John T. Hi.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thanks. John T. Philip and I started our journey with you with one of your sensual massage courses.
Yes.
And then we moved on to eventually, dipping our toes in the lifestyle. Which has been fantastic. It's been amazing and fantastic. But it's in the beginning, it was also, we made a lot of mistakes and we didn't know the basic guidelines, and there was a lot of hurt. And I mean, when you were speaking just now, we went through the jealousy, we went through the this, we went through the that. I feel like I should write a damn book after all the experiences we've had in the last in the last I'd say 20 months. I want to know where's the support, and maybe you should think about this, Johns, because you I don't know, you're my go-to when I come to these sort of things, but where's the support and the guidelines that are set down for people who are entering into the lifestyle, so that they don't make the same mistakes, so that they look for the same sort of people and the same sort of people with looking for a connection, and not just, I don't know how to say it to you, but I call them ratters, I don't, where are the guidelines? There's nobody that leads anybody into this and supports them through it.
Yeah, it's a problem, and it would be wonderful for, especially at the clubs, for people to really get a talk like this before they engage with anything. Absolutely. Or to be able to spend some time with someone who has the experience, and for all of these issues and questions to be raised, and for people to be able to talk about them. And unfortunately, it's not really available. And a lot of people go and, you find a couple on the internet and they think, well, we know how all this is going to happen because we've seen it in porn or we've seen it in a movie, without understanding everything that it involves. And it really does come down to education, which is absolutely vital. And that's why this work is so important, and having these forums where people can talk, where they can ask, and to make that more and more available.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish somehow that we could just get the message out there, because if I look at the amount of people that we've met, and I'd say probably 10% of them are looking for essential connection, and this kind of experience where I'd say the other 9 are not. It's
Yeah.
quite sad, actually.
Yeah, because a lot of people,
Petra, you can agree with me, hey?
a lot of people are just looking for sex.
Yeah.
Without the awareness, without the consciousness. And that's where a lot of the problems come in.
Absolutely.
That's the truth of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And anyway, Janti, I just want to thank you for starting us on our journey, because I tell everybody about the experiences we had with you, and I'm just so grateful. Really, you've absolutely changed our lives. I'm very, very grateful.
It's beautiful. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. So thank you, everybody, for sharing with me. I really enjoyed this. I think it's a very interesting discussion, and I really hope it opens some doors for you of discussion, and know that firstly, you're not alone in this. So any other discussions and questions, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I'm happy to go deeper into this. I know in a public forum, for some people, that is really difficult. Some interesting things coming up in Johannesburg and in the Cape. Next Saturday is sensual bondage massage, awakening the senses. That's really exciting. The Saturday after that, and all this is in my newsletter, the Saturday after that is a day just for women, exploring and learning about aspects of female sexuality. In a couple of weeks, there is an online expanded energy orgasm workshop where you're going to learn how to do this for a man, how to do this for a woman, how to do it for yourself. We are looking at a women's retreat in Greyton in August. The info for that will be available early next week. And when we're in Cape Town, maybe a water flow massage. That'll be, we'll see if that's possible in the pool there, if the water can be warm enough. And whatever else there is, please get in touch with me. There were a couple of questions here. What's the expectation of a unicorn? So a unicorn it's so-called unicorn because unicorns are very rare and mythical creatures. So in the world of swinging, a unicorn is supposed to be generally a single woman who is available for experiences. And the expectation is the same as anybody else, with discussion, with boundaries. Just because a woman is there does not mean that she's available for sex or sexually available at all. So it's the same as anything else. It's the same expectation, with the same discussion, with the same boundaries, with the same respect and honoring. There was another question. How do we meet like-minded people? Swingingheaven.com is a website. I don't know if Z-Nights is still up and running and everything around that, but that's good. And there are some clubs in Johannesburg, and I know that Lisa's Lounge is still open in the Cape. I don't know what it's like anymore. And I know that there are some clubs in Johannesburg. So if you'd like to contact me, I can give you some of the names. What is there in Johannesburg? There's Club Amsterdam, which I've heard is pretty good. I haven't been there. I think Club Rome is still open. And I know that there are one or two in Pretoria. So if you just looked up swingers clubs in Johannesburg or Pretoria, you'd find those. Communication and intention and awareness. So thank you, everybody, for sharing. As I say, I hope this has opened some doors, given some clarity, or even raised lots and lots of questions. And please remember that you're not alone. Reach out for help, for discussion, for sharing. So thank you again, and I wish you all so much pleasure. Good night.